Hello, so I just wanted to talk quickly about some stuff I've been playing around with an aim to getting me a bit better at playing in duo and solo situations. And this is partly to do with chord melody arrangements, but I've never been an arranging guy, so I find I want to approach things from the perspective of being able to improvise them anyway. Not necessarily improvisation being in opposition to composition, because sometimes you'll always end up playing like similar patterns and ideas most of the time in your solos. But just so that, if I see something in a melody that I don't know, that I haven't rehearsed, I can drop in some kind of simple arrangement. That's the idea anyway. I wouldn't say I'm quite there yet, but it's something that I'm working on. So the technique is really very simple. It's just basically making sure that whatever note I end up on at the end of a phrase, I can plonk a chord behind it. Okay. So for instance, let's take this phrase. It's a major arpeggio, major seventh arpeggio, like that, right? Major ninth, actually, sorry. Or that kind of thing, or maybe this. And now, of course, you know that I'm all about the connections between chords, so. Or that kind of thing, right? So, I mean, I'm using no shapes that should be unfamiliar to anybody here. So, and then, yeah, so that's dead simple. But I think already it kind of fills the sound out a lot. So I've been trying to work on that a lot. Now, I mean, obviously you can work on it in chord melodies. So let's take, for instance, Just Friends. Sorry, let me try that again. So a simple like chord melody arrangement like that would just take chords that sound good with the melody notes or that agree with the melody notes. So for instance, that you might just play that one or this one or this one as the first chord. In this case I chose this one just for a little bit more of a contemporary character. It's like a first conversion C major ninth chord, right? Basically, so it's a C major ninth, but the notes are rearranged so that the E is in the bass. Okay, so what is kind of cluster sound, and then you could probably change that as well, because you're not really limited to necessarily using the chords that are in the real book, for instance. You can do a lot of reharmonization. So with that in mind, it's just like trying to tie everything up, trying to make it all knit together. Bebop heads even. That's quite a difficult one. Now, obviously there's technical issues. So for instance, if I take a descending D7 bebop scale, I'm sorry, I shouldn't call it that, but that's what people call it. Okay, so you can see that's a technical problem right away. How do I deal with that? I don't know. None of those solutions seem satisfactory. So sometimes, it's not quite in time. That's a difficult one as well. If I'm walking down the guitar in this weird sort of way, which is fine at sort of moderate tempos, but it gets kind of more difficult when you're playing a bit faster. In terms of voicings as well, sometimes they can be very simple. So for instance, I quite like this voicing for a dominant seventh, which is just third and seventh. This is the seventh, and that's the third of an E7, for instance. I like, roots and sevenths together. So, it could even just be a bass note. You're not limited necessarily to just playing like full voicings all the time. In fact, it's probably better if you don't. And it gives you that kind of, flexibility. Especially with, low tunes. Like, for instance, Someday My Prince Will Come starts down here. It ends up here. Okay, so I can't put that up an octave. And maybe I could change its key, but I can't put that up an octave. It will just be like up here somewhere. So I've got to deal with these low notes. So in the end, you just end up using dyads, right? So that chord's really nice. This is a great shape, by the way. This is like it can be used for two basic types of chords. Either you see this as being, you know, seventh, third, and sharp 5, or you can see it as being root, flat 5, and flat 7th. So it can, you know, for a D7 chord, for instance, it could be that, which is like a D augmented, or it could be this, which is like a D7 with a flat 5. You can also use it a tritone away, which is really useful. Okay, so that gives you like a nice little shape that you can use. So, for instance, how's it going? That's it. So that sounds all right, you see. Even though it's quite, you know, compact and low down, so you're just using dyads, it sounds kind of complete in itself. So that's the way I'd probably approach that. And the same for lines. So for instance, if I've got this kind of a line, for instance, okay. You know, you're not always having to play complete chords, and it's good not to sometimes. You know, also good to just play bass lines. You know, you're not limited to. You can be quite creative and quite spare. And of course, you wouldn't do that kind of playing in a trio, but maybe in a trio you play more like this. So your chords are in a slightly different place, slightly higher up. You know, where a bass player probably wouldn't appreciate you playing down in their register. So that's one thing. Now another thing that I find very useful is separating out the melody and the chords. Now this is something I got from Tuck Andrus. It's about the only thing I understood from his DVD, and that guy is pretty advanced. But it's very simple. You just put the melody note before you put the rest of the chords. So, for instance, if I play, you know, this kind of again, this shape, right? Pasquale Grasso seems to like this, by the way. Then I'm separating it out, which gives me more of a pianistic effect. Or, you know. You know, for instance, you know, again, it's like, you know, sort of trying to sort my fingers out. So, you know, so all I'm doing is just breaking up the melody, putting it first, putting the chords afterwards. It doesn't always have to be first, like for Body and Soul. Sorry, I should be doing this. So it's not always so simple, but the point is I'm still separating it out. So you hear the melody in the foreground. And the effect is definitely more modern than just, you know, playing. Which might be more appropriate in other situations, especially if you're playing an older style of music, maybe more like Barney Kessel or somebody. I mean, Barney Kessel's amazing at doing this, by the way. But, you know, somebody like Kurt Rosenwinkel or Lage Lund or somebody is much more likely to break it up, you know, rather than playing. They play one bit of the chord first and the other bit of the chord second. And actually, the nice thing is you realise it's actually perfectly possible to play solo jazz guitar with a plectrum, where you don't need to use like your fingers. So that's really good. Because I'm rubbish at finger picking, to be honest. I mean, you can always use hybrid picking if you want. Some things are going to be, very difficult to achieve with, without using hybrid picking. And like contrary motion like that, for instance, or voicings that have a note, far away from the other ones, or it's much easier using hybrid picking or finger picking. But like I do like the plectrum thing, partly because that's what I'm most familiar with. I can keep it going, and I feel there's enough going on there that it sounds good. So yeah, that's what I've been working on. Let me know what you think below. Hopefully that gives you some things to think about, some ideas to practice. Thanks for watching.